Can a documentary distort the image of an elite athlete? The controversy erupted when none other than Rafael Nadal, a living legend of tennis, openly criticized the Netflix documentary about Carlos Alcaraz, calling it misleading and unprofessional. In the midst of his preparation for Roland Garros, the young player from Murcia finds himself at the center of a media storm that, however, doesn't seem to shake him. So what really happened with Carlos Alcaraz, my way, and why did Nadal feel the need to intervene? Stay with us to discover all the details behind this controversy that has shaken the tennis world. The docuseries Carlos Alcaraz, My Way, produced by Netflix, promised to show the most human and personal side of the current world number 2. And it did. Although perhaps not in the way his fans expected. The documentary portrays a young, cheerful, and ambitious Alcaraz, but also emphasizes his desire to enjoy life as a 22-year-old, with scenes showing his love for parties and moments of distraction away from the court. This raised red flags. In a key scene, both his agent and his coach expressed doubts about whether that lifestyle could affect his performance. But what seemed like an intimate look quickly became the target of criticism, even from within the tennis circuit itself. Rafael Nadal, one of the world's tennis idols and a role model for Alcaraz, broke his silence. In an interview with Diario AS, he made his opinion clear: the documentary doesn't reflect his personality or how he lives his career. He doesn't come across as a player who trains, but as someone who loves to party. And that's not true. For Nadal, what was shown is unfair, since Carlos is a great professional, very hard-working and committed to his growth. In response to these accusations, Alcaraz was quick to reply. Though avoiding confrontation, the Mercian defended himself calmly and maturely. "I've worked really hard to get here. For years, I sacrificed a lot when I was younger to achieve my goal," he said. He also added that he's not affected by what is said about the documentary and that he remains focused on his path, always guided by his team, his family, and his friends. And although this controversy has made plenty of noise, it hasn't distracted him from what really matters: Roland Garros. Alcaraz arrives as the defending champion and top favorite, ready to defend his crown on clay. In a last-minute twist, his first opponent also changed. He was supposed to face Kei Nishikori, but the Japanese player's injury ruled him out of the tournament, making way for Italian Giulio Zeppieri, who came through the qualifiers. This change in the draw doesn't lessen the pressure. All eyes are on him, now more than ever. And the documentary controversy has added an extra layer of media attention that follows him with every step. Amid criticism, support, and endless expectations, Carlos Alcaraz proves that his strength lies not just in his tennis, but also in his mental toughness. That Rafa Nadal spoke up in his defense is no small thing. It's a sign of respect, but also a warning: not everything shown on screen is true. Alcaraz remains focused on his goal, the next Grand Slam. And while some debate his image, he keeps building his legacy, point by point, on the court. What happens when the script changes at the last minute? Carlos Alcaraz had everything lined up for a high-profile debut at Roland Garros 2025 against Kei Nishikori, a seasoned player with a wealth of experience. But an unexpected injury to the Japanese player forced a rewrite of the story. And the opponent? Now the Spaniard will face Giulio Zeppieri, a young Italian coming from the qualifiers who, on paper, poses a much lesser challenge. Is it really a favorable change? Can Alcaraz let his guard down, or could this unexpected twist work against him? Stay tuned, because this is just getting started. Carlos Alcaraz arrived in Paris on the back of winning the Rome Masters 1000, with the goal of defending his Roland Garros title. His debut was scheduled for this Monday against Kei Nishikori, a player known for his quality, his history in the circuit, and his veteran status. Although not at his peak, the Japanese was undoubtedly one of the most dangerous names in the draw. But Nishikori's health let him down once again. A new injury forced him to withdraw before even stepping on court. So, a match that promised experience and intensity vanished from the schedule. And with it, a new chapter opened for the Mercian, facing Italian Giulio Zeppieri. Zeppieri, just 23 years old and currently ranked 306 in the world, reached the main draw after winning 3 qualifying matches without dropping a set. In his last match, he beat Argentine Agustin Gomez, who had just eliminated young Spanish prospect Martín Landaluz. The Italian is on a roll, motivated, and with nothing to lose. Despite his youth and low ranking, Zeppieri is not an opponent to be underestimated. In the qualifiers, he showed solidity and mental strength, key traits for a long tournament like Roland Garros. His playing style suits clay well, and although he lacks experience on big stages, he'll have nothing to lose against the world number 2. For Alcaraz, the change represents relief in terms of competitive pressure. Nishikori, with his experience and ability to endure long rallies, posed a tough opening challenge. In contrast, Zepieri presents a different scenario, a younger, less experienced player, but dangerous if taken lightly. These kinds of situations also demand quick mental adaptation. Switching opponents, styles, tactics. It's not as simple as it seems. But if anyone has shown the ability to adjust, it's Carlitos. His coaching team, led by Juan Carlos Ferrero, is already fine-tuning the plan to ensure a strong debut. Meanwhile, the qualifiers have delivered some very interesting matchups. Albert Ramos, in his final Roland Garros, will face the always dangerous Casper Ruud. Pablo Lamas will battle fellow Spaniard Alejandro Davidovich, while veteran Marin Cilic entered as a lucky loser and will play against Kobeli. Lloyd Harris, for his part, will take on the powerful Andrei Rublev. Carlos Alcaraz's journey in Roland Garros begins with a surprise. What was going to be a debut against a legend like Kei Nishikori has become a duel with a young Italian prospect who can play with no fear. On paper, it may seem like an easier debut, but the key will be how Alcaraz manages this unexpected change. Focus, adaptability, and respect for his opponent will be crucial to avoid any surprises. Can you be world number 2 and still have to explain yourself? Carlos Alcaraz has proven to be one of the most talented and charismatic players of his generation, but he's also faced criticism after the release of his Netflix documentary. The reason? His desire to live like a 22-year-old without giving up the elite level of tennis. And now, from Roland Garros, where he defends his title, Alcaraz has decided to speak out. What does Carlitos really think about pressure, his career, and the critics? Stay tuned to discover the most human side of the champion. Carlos Alcaraz is already in Paris. With the Rome title in his pocket and the fresh memory of his 2024 Roland Garros triumph, the Mercian is ready for battle. But before stepping onto Philippe Chatrier, he spoke to the tournament's official magazine about his current moment. And to defend himself. Because after the release of his Netflix documentary, many accused him of not taking tennis seriously enough. Carlos's response was firm: "I've worked really hard to get here. Talent is important, but without hard work it's useless. For years I sacrificed a lot when I was younger to achieve my goal." Words that show undeniable maturity and debunk the myth of a youngster living between parties and cameras. Alcaraz insists that if he's where he is today, it's because of discipline, effort, and the support of a team that has always been by his side, especially during tough times. In the interview, he also spoke about his love for Roland Garros, a tournament that not only brought him his greatest glory, but has been present in his life since childhood. "When I was a kid, I used to rush home to watch the matches on TV. I dreamed of playing there. I remember saying to myself, one day I'll be on that court. That dream is now reality." And although he admits that clay isn't his favorite surface, he recognizes that he grew up on it and has a special connection to clay court tournaments. And of course, Rafael Nadal's name came up. For Carlos, the man from Monaco is not just an idol, but a constant source of learning. Rafa is an exceptional person, very humble. "I've learned a lot from how he approaches matches, the passion with which he plays every point, and how he manages emotions in key moments." Words of admiration that show the new generation doesn't seek to break the legacy, but to continue it with pride. Finally, Carlos also spoke about his coach, Juan Carlos Ferrero, Roland Garros champion in 2003. "He was really strong. He moved really well. Sometimes I dream of having his game. I think he was more complete than I am today." Another sign of the respect Carlitos has for the history of Spanish tennis. And that, despite being at the top, he hasn't lost his humility. Carlos Alcaraz arrives at Roland Garros carrying a backpack full of pressure, expectations, and criticism, but also titles, confidence, and a past that justifies his present. Behind the champion is a young man who has sacrificed a lot, who is still learning, and who understands that greatness is not only measured in trophies, but in the ability to inspire and stay true to oneself. Far from what some may think, Carlos is not improvising his career, he's building it with every shot, every lesson, and every word. What happens when your idol becomes your doubles partner? Carlos Alcaraz, the current world number 2 and Roland Garros title defender, shared a very special memory: his experience playing doubles with Rafael Nadal at the Paris Olympics. Beyond the victories, finals, and titles, what he experienced with Rafa has become one of the greatest lessons of his young yet impressive career. What exactly did he learn from Nadal? And why might that experience shape his future as a tennis player? Join us, because this goes far beyond a simple anecdote. Carlos Alcaraz heads into Roland Garros with the wind at his back. With titles in Monte Carlo and Rome, a final in Barcelona, and the motivation of defending his crown in Paris, the Mercian is at the center of attention. But in the midst of this whirlwind of victories, he paused to talk about something even more valuable than any trophy: learning. In an interview with the Paris tournament, Alcaraz recalled an experience that defines much of his growth as a player, playing doubles with Rafael Nadal during the Olympics. For him, that moment was much more than just sharing a court. It was an exceptional experience to be close to my idol, he said. What he learned alongside Nadal goes beyond technique. It's something, in his words, he will use throughout his career. Speaking about Rafa, Carlos doesn't hold back on praise. I admire the way he plays, the way he carries himself on court, his mentality, and the love he has for tennis. But what struck him most was Nadal's approachability, his off-court demeanor. Rafa is an exceptional person, very humble. When you meet him for the first time, he's just like you or me. A simple phrase, but one that reveals the impact of sharing a locker room and concentration time with a living legend of Spanish tennis. The most valuable thing, however, was what he learned by observing him in action. According to Alcaraz, the greatest lesson Nadal gave him was how to handle pressure and mentally prepare for matches. I learned how he handled pressure situations, how he approached matches, and I saw the passion he transmitted. Because when you play with Nadal, you don't just share a court. You share a mindset, a way of understanding the sport that has been key to winning 22 Grand Slams. In that sense, Carlitos believes that what he experienced with Rafa at the Olympics will be very useful throughout his career. And it's no wonder. Learning from the best on clay, in an environment like the Olympics, is not something easily forgotten. It leaves a mark. It's pure development. Alcaraz has shown he can write his own story, but also that he respects the stories written before him. And in that list, Nadal holds the highest place for him. Not just as a ranking reference, but as a role model in behavior, humility, and passion for tennis. Carlos Alcaraz shone in Rome, won his first title at the Italian Masters 1000, and took home a €1 million prize. But his victory also highlighted an old controversy that resurfaces every year: the prize money gap between the men's and women's circuits. While the Spaniard celebrated his major win, many wondered, why did champion Jasmine Paolini earn less money for the same achievement? And, more importantly, when will the promise of equality be fulfilled? Carlos Alcaraz was crowned champion at the Foro Italico after defeating Jannik Sinner, taking home a check for €985,030. Jasmine Paolini, champion in singles and also in doubles, earned €107,640 less, with a purse of €877,390. Although both lifted the same trophy, they didn't earn the same. And that has sparked many voices.